In this video reflection, we're going to be looking at level 1.2, and first of all, the data, and then also the indicators that we looked at with level 1.2. For level 1.2, we were specifically focused on what about with students and parents and how they feel where they are at. And we noticed a couple of pieces of information from this data. Information piece number one is if we looked at students, they registered at a 3.91, which is relatively strong. But when we looked at like the gaps, we noticed specifically that some of the areas they marked as lower was in that communication piece of how they felt like they could communicate back of concerns. And that was an interesting note for us. We have a very structured system for reporting harassment and discrimination. And so we felt like that could have been an area that we could look into increased communication. When we look at parents, they marked it at 4.71. And so that does show that there is a high level of confidence in our ability to keep kids safe and orderly. But of course, areas of communication can always be worked on with that. And so when we looked at our lagging indicators, we looked at it from that lens of communication. And so we're going to look at how we communicate our safety plans, drop off and pickup procedures, communication with teaching expectations to students, how we continue to focus on the positive and communicate that back to home, and then again, how we can really show and communicate that discrimination and harassment reporting. So when we're looking at lagging indicator number one, which was our communication of our safety plan, we really wanted to communicate to parents prior to a drill and also after the drill. And so our typical procedure is before a drill, we will send out communication to parents, just letting them know that this is taking place. So if you can see right here, you can see that we sent out a message saying, hey, we're going to be doing our first fire drill on this date. But then the other key component is celebrating and recognizing afterwards as well. And so we would post things from the website, reminding them about what we just did and how it keeps their kids safe. When we partner with community members, such as our local police department, we also post that on social media to, again, emphasize the importance of this as well. We also want to communicate one of our key times of safety, and that's the pickup and the drop off. And so we've made a very concerted effort to communicate this to parents on how they can safely pick up and drop off, and also where those levels of support will be that keep their kids safe as well. And so you can see this is a visual that we send out frequently, specifically at the beginning of the year and in the middle of the year to remind parents. And then anytime we feel like we have a need to just remind them of those procedures that outlines to them how they can pick up and drop off their students. We've also created a video that shows the parents how to do this. And again, we remind them of this at frequent points throughout the year. When we're talking about communicating expectations of safety and orderliness to students, we are focused primarily on school-wide teaching of those expectations. And what we have done is we focused it on 5 areas that we feel that's the greatest area for us to focus on, which is the hallways, the restrooms, the office, the lunchroom, and the playground. And we've actually worked with our student government to create videos to show students what it looks like and what it doesn't look like. And then when we presented this information, we then got feedback back from the teachers that you can see right here, that students actually provided positive feedback on that training and enjoyed seeing their classmates show those expectations. And we'll continue to do that both at the beginning of the year, and we also do a reminder after we come back from winter break. PBIS implementation is, again, communicating to parents how we're working with students who maybe struggled with some following the rules or the choices that they made. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see this positive choices reflection sheet. This is actually carbon copied. And so when we work with students, we have them process what happened, how did it affect them and others. But we also use this component of teaching kids how to work through that emotions as well. And so we've come up with our 4 zones of emotion, and our counselor has presented school-wide lessons on this. And we use this component to teach students how they're feeling, but also to help them communicate that back at home. And so these two go hand in hand to communicate back to parents on just how we're supporting their student, and when we make potentially some other choices, how we can positively flip that around and continue to work together with that. And then finally, when we talk about discrimination and harassment, we actually have a very robust system in place through our district of measuring and monitoring those components there. And so on every website within our district, including our school, we have a place where it says report harassment and discrimination. And you can actually click on this to see the report, but anybody in the community, parents, students, staff can report any instances that they feel like of harassment and discrimination. And there's a very strict procedure of how we respond that we're trained frequently from the district with that. The other component is it allows us to collect and measure data that we're able to use to see how we're going. And so you can see on the top that those were the number of cases we had in the 2024-25 school year of reports of harassment and discrimination, where we had the number of 8, and then it breaks it down so that we can continue to work as a school and with our students on that. We've also worked with our district to come up with a measurement of how we feel in inclusion and belonging, and they utilize this information from these cases, along with other components that we're looking at to continue to make sure that our students feel that they are in a safe and an orderly environment. By continuing to focus on gathering this data and continuing to focus on communication with students and with parents and the community, we do feel like this is an area of strength for us.